Hey everybody, this is the story of the time that I was walking across the street from my old healthcare office in Las Vegas. And I walked across Maryland Parkway. That's the name of the road to UNLV. I went to my old Tai Chi spot because I was going to do some Tai Chi, and lo and behold, there was somebody else standing there in my Tai Chi spot. A person that would prove out to be one of the most amazing people that I ever met in my entire life. Why would I say that? Because that person was a real philosopher, a living philosopher. It wasn't just somebody that read a book and, just sat off to the side and parroted out what some people think, but he's a guy that stepped into it. And he lived his life as a philosopher from the inside out. I mean, there I was. I always liked helping people. I had a healthcare office that I was trying to build, and I was about to get married at the time. I had been a Mormon missionary in Taiwan for 2 years, from 76 to 78. I'd practiced in a clinic in Singapore in 1983. And there I was getting my Las Vegas healthcare office going and just mentally preparing myself, psyching myself up to put in 40 years just slaving away, working like a flippin' fool for all that time. Of course, when you help people, that's not being a fool, but to only work and not arrange life in such a way as to enjoy nature and meditate and like that. Well, that's what the difference is, and that's why meeting this person, this black man from Chicago, and I'll put his picture below so you can see it, the link to his picture. He literally was like Mahatma Gandhi. But he was a black man with round glasses, and he was standing there doing Tai Chi while balancing a rock right on the top of his head. And so at that time I was getting ready to do everything that I was on track to do with my religion, with my life and all of that. And I said, hey, yeah, man, I'm engaged. I'm getting married pretty soon, in December. And he's one of the only guys that said, why would you want to get married? You see that? I mean, who else, when you tell people you're getting married, how many of them will say, oh, congratulations? But then how many of them think through it and would actually be bold enough and truthful enough to ask that direct question? Why in the world do you want to get married, And that was just a small, foreshadowing, just a small example of the wisdom that would come from this. I call him the American Gandhi, Wayne Johnson. And the thing is, I've met a lot of really impressive people in my life. I've met people that are esteemed to be Hindu saints and avatars. I've been hugged by them. I've been initiated into yoga. I met, Swami Swahananda and a lot of people. Each of them had their influence in my life. But I do think it's Wayne Johnson that had the biggest influence. And I hope that in this video I can tell you why and make it a decent tribute to that good person. So I started learning Tai Chi when I was at my university preparing for my healthcare career. That was in 1980. There was a man from Vancouver that taught me this entire Yang style set of Tai Chi. He's since passed on. God rest his soul. Eckhart Bergel, a student of Victor Chung in from Vancouver, Canada. Thank you, brother. So there's him. And so I learned that, and then I went to Singapore to practice in a healthcare clinic. When I got to Singapore, I went to this little temple called now, I speak Mandarin from my mission, but sometimes they'll write the names of things in a sequence of letters that represents the dialect and not Mandarin. So the name of the temple, I don't even know what it is in Mandarin. It's EAN and then KENG, temple, on Frankel Avenue in Singapore. At that temple, they were having Tai Chi classes. So while I was over there in Singapore, I got to go to that temple on Frankel Avenue in Singapore. And I learned the same movements, but through a different student, through the Dong lineage, the Dongyingjie lineage. There was Mr. Tan there, I think there was a Mr. Zhong. But I learned that, and then I decided to just come back and find me a wife, So I ended up living in Las Vegas, and that's where I finally actually got my office going, and I was off Tai Chi classes to my own patients in the park at this one Tai Chi spot. And I thought I was the only guy in the world that was catching the Tai Chi vibe and was really into that thing. Until I walked across the street that day, and there was Wayne Johnson. Now, Wayne Johnson was so unlike any other person that I had met. Those were the days that we were tethered to our offices because we had to be close enough to answer the phone, They did have the big, gigantic brick-style mobile phones, but I didn't have one of those. But instead, I had to either not answer the phone when I went for a walk, or I had to have my assistant in the office call a number that would ring my pager, a little beeper thing. I'd pick it up and I'd look at the number, and then I'd have to find a pay phone to call them back, or rush back to the office. So we were literally like enslaved to the office, just tethered right there if we expected to work and do business at that time, way back then. So when I got to the park, I saw this guy, Wayne Johnson, doing Tai Chi, but not just any common Tai Chi. He was just doing the greatest, most meditative looking postures I'd flippin' ever seen in my whole life. And he'd balance a rock on the top of his head when he did it. And that shows that he was really he was conducting his life as if it was a living laboratory. And so he'd do some Tai Chi. I went up and I said hi to him, and I just couldn't believe that it was another Tai Chi person in the town even. So we'd sit around, we'd talk about a whole bunch of stuff through the few years that I knew him. At that Tai Chi spot, he would bring his flute sometimes, and he'd just be sitting there playing the flute like he had not a care in the world, And he also had this little keyboard thing that he'd type his memoirs into, and then later he had a way of printing it out and stuff. But I should just kind of finish this by telling you what it is that I learned from him. What I learned from that good person, Wayne Johnson, is he showed me a different way. He showed me that it is possible to just simply sit out in nature and smell the air, relax under the trees, and have a leisurely life. Leisure is valuable. That's so valuable. And that had not even occurred to me. And he had read the great classics, He and I asked him, I said, what books do you recommend from your viewpoint that are the greatest philosophical books that I could read? And he suggested reading Heraclitus and also Gandhi's book, The Story of My Experiments in Truth. And he also recommended reading the brothers Karamazov. And he would literally sit in that park like a Plato or like a Socrates and just talk about any subject under the sun. But I'd never met a real living philosopher before. I'd met a few bookworm types, that, well, I'm getting my degree in philosophy. I'm just gonna, yeah, okay, I got that one right. Who taught this? Yeah, okay. I'd got 100 on my test. But they were just bookworms. They weren't living in the park, is what I'm trying to say, man. They didn't arrange their life in such a way as to escape the common traps that just make life total dog crap, Oh, sorry for my language. So he was the guy that influenced me the most, because it was not much longer after that. I did get married, and I married a beautiful person, and I'm thankful that I did. Somehow it worked out as good as it did, and it's just been a blessing to me through the years. So I did that, but I will say it was just shortly after that I read the book Walden by Henry David Thoreau. And the whole thing about Walden was that life is like a living laboratory, that a person can live deliberately in a cabin in the woods and not have any of those concerns that could ruin a person's life. And so I read that book, and you know what? Man, it wasn't much longer after that I sold my office. And I went from having a big office with 3 assistants, bringing in lots of money at the time, but paying a lot out in overhead and salaries. I just got rid of that, and I downsized to just the tiniest little healthcare office. And it was because of Wayne Johnson and reading Walden and just realizing that, man, if I just take it easy, I can live almost as if semi-retired, even as a young person. So I began the great experiment. I got rid of my car. And I realized that if I don't have a car, then that saves like $700 about per month. No car payment, no repairs, no gas, no insurance payment. So I treated that like a second job. So that was $700 that I didn't have to earn each month, And then I started eating more simply, and that saved money and like that. So I have met and listened to and a whole bunch of people through the years, but I really think that if I hadn't met Wayne Johnson at that time, that the black man from Chicago, the yogi, the Black Gandhi of America, that's what I call him. If I hadn't met him, man, my life would have been a lot more crummy than it's been. And I think it's been really great. So I don't even know if you're still alive, brother. If you're still alive, I just want to say thank you to you, Wayne Johnson, friend of Gretchen Brewer from Chicago. I appreciate you. God bless. And so please like and subscribe. Thanks.